So I've been feeling a bit under the weather, and so I decided to make sort of an old comfort food that I remembered when I was a kid I loved, which is cheesy cauliflower. Now, when I was a kid, my mom didn't make it like this. She bought like the frozen packets in yellow cheese, but I absolutely loved it. And subsequently, I've made it myself at home without buying the frozen packets. So here I'm just getting my cauliflower ready, cutting it into slightly smaller pieces so that they cook relatively evenly. And this was a pretty big cauliflower. So I'm just getting it ready to go into the oven. And that's what I want to tell you about. So for a long time, I would make cheesy cauliflower cheese, whichever you want to call it. I would do it by parboiling the cauliflower. And not too long ago, I realized, why am I doing this? It always makes the cheese sauce watery because there's so much water in the cauliflower already. And then on top of that, you boil it and you put more water in it. And it just was not working for me. So I thought to myself, I roast broccoli and cauliflower all the time. How about I roast my cauliflower for the cauliflower cheesy cauliflower instead? And so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and get this all cut up. I'm going to put it on a sheet pan, and I'm going to roast it until it gets slightly brown, and then I will put it in my cheese sauce. So here I'm putting a little bit of oil on it and some salt and pepper. It's always good to season as you go. And I've got my oven preheating at 350. I'm going to throw this onto the sheet pan and spread it out pretty evenly, one layer. And they should all cook, they're all pretty much the same size, so they should cook pretty evenly. And into the oven they go. And I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here. And then here I have my garlic. I put a little bit of garlic in my cheese sauce. So I'm getting this all chopped up and ready to go. And then my butter. And now I actually didn't chop that garlic. I kind of cut it into halves because I'm actually going to put it in the milk and just let it sort of flavor the milk. I'm not going to put chunks of garlic in my cheese sauce. Grating up some different kinds of cheeses. And I actually use 3 different kinds of cheese in this. I use sort of a regular day-to-day sharp cheddar, orange cheddar, and then I use some older matured English cheddar. And then I also used a Leicestershire cheese as well. So getting all of those grated up on my little handy dandy grater thing there. And I like to use different cheeses because I feel like it adds a lot more flavor to the finished cheese sauce. If you just use one cheese, you only get that one flavor. Whereas if you do a mix of different kinds of cheeses, you get a real complexity. And sometimes I've even used like a pepper jack, something like that to add a little bit of spiciness to it as well. So I'm getting all my mise en place ready to go, so that when I start making the sauce, I'll just be able to assemble everything. And this is pretty quick recipe too. I would say maybe 30 minutes. So here you go. I'm going to get my butter in the pan. Get that melted. And now, once this is melted, a little bit more, I'm going to add in my flour. And I'm just putting the milk into the pan here. I'm going to have that on a low heat, just warming up to give some of the flavor of the garlic that I'm putting in right now. And again, we always want to build flavors, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. Turn my heat up just a hair there. Gonna get ready to add my flour. Give my milk a stir there. And I'm just gonna bring the milk up to maybe slightly simmering. I'm not gonna cook it for too long. And in goes my flour. And I'm going to cook this a little bit. I'm not going to get it super brown because it's, it's a bechamel or a white sauce. And I'm just going to add the milk in and let that get a little bit thick before I add the cheese in as well. So at this point, I was kind of looking at this and I was thinking, this looks a little bit dry to me. So I'm actually going to add, I added a little bit more butter to the flour mix. And I'm taking the garlic out of the milk. I love garlic, but I didn't really want to bite into a chunk of partially raw garlic in my cauliflower cheese sauce. So get all of that out. And you can see it's kind of simmering a little bit there. Not scalding, or balding, either one. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to that. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of freshly ground nutmeg. Give it another stir, and then I'm going to turn it off for now. And I'm just basically letting that flour cook a little bit. It's even though it looks like it's pretty hot, it's not. I'm just trying to bring it up to kind of a toasty flavor on the flour. Not necessarily a super brown roux. And once this milk is done, and I finish wiping up stuff, apparently. There we go. I'm going to stir that around again. And now my milk is going to start going in. I'm going to pour a little bit at a time. And then I'm going to whisk it. And you can see that it almost immediately starts thickening up. So it's really important at this point that you whisk it. A little bit more. And don't worry if it seems a bit lumpy at first. As you bring it back up to the boil and whisk it, it will get smoother. And then once you add in the cheese and you whisk it more, it'll end up being a really smooth sauce. So I'm just using the whisk to break up a few of the clumps that I see. And add the rest of my milk. Get that pan out of the way. Keep whisking. And then once I see that it's thickening up again, because it was really thick when we first added the milk, and then as it thickened up, and then as we added more milk, it got thinner and thinner. So we just want to give it a second here and let it start to thicken up a little bit. And I'm going to switch over from the whisk to the spoon, just to make sure that I'm getting, all of those clumps of flour broken up. And back to the whisk. Okay, and this is looking about where I want it to be. So I am going to grab the cheese. And you can see all the beautiful different colors of cheese in there. I think I decided that it probably needed just a couple minutes more on here. Get it all nice and smooth. I just realized how much I switched tools in this video. It's like, pick one, spoon or whisk. Actually, it doesn't matter. You can use both, depending on what floats your boat. I would use a whisk, though, when I'm putting the milk into the flour. It just helps to break it up a lot better than a spoon does. So, but that's looking pretty good to me. And is it going to happen? Are we finally going to add the cheese? We are. So there goes the cheese. I'm going to do that while I whisk a little bit as well. Put a little bit of the cheese in. Get it started. Whisking, whisking. A little bit more. Those duck bowls are great, by the way. And you can see it's already starting to turn colors. And this is why I really like using the Leicestershire cheese and also the yellow sharp cheddar, because it adds that little bit of orange color that reminds me of those frozen bags, but it tastes so much better. Now this won't take very long. I'm just going to whisk it until the cheese is melted. And you can see me there kind of checking it and seeing what it looks like there. Oh, I think I found a piece of garlic that eluded me in the first batch. Get this nice and mixed up. And you want it pretty smooth. And you want to make sure that all of the cheese has melted into the bechamel. I'm going to move that off the heat right away. My timer just went off, so I'm going to pull the cauliflower out of the oven and put it off to the side. And you can see in that brief glimpse that it was pretty, it was a little brown on top, looked good. That's how I want it. And this is going to hold up so much better in the cheese sauce. It's not going to cause your cheese sauce to get all runny and watery. And that's what I love about it. It's just so much easier, and the cheese sauce tastes so much better when it's not diluted with a bunch of water. So as you can see, the cauliflower is lightly browned. I'm just going to add all that into my cheese sauce. And you could do this probably in an air fryer too. I have an air fryer, but it's not very big, so I didn't want to have to sit there and babysit several batches of cauliflower. It was just easier for me to throw it on a sheet pan in the oven. So here I am just kind of mixing the cauliflower in with the sauce, tasting it a little bit to make sure, see if it needs any seasoning. And now I'm going to take my seasoned buttered breadcrumbs and I'm going to sprinkle those on top, because who doesn't like a crunchy top on top of cheese sauce and cauliflower? Well, I'll just add the whole thing. Why not? And then this is going to just go into the oven under the broiler for probably about 5 minutes. Because if you think about it, the cauliflower and the cheese sauce are already cooked. So we just need to crisp up those crumbs a little bit. And here we go. We're going to come right out of the oven. And there you go. Now, I will say I think the crumbs got a little browner than I wanted here, but they still tasted fine, and they were really, really delicious and crunchy on top of that cheese. And there we go. That's my cheesy cauliflower or cauliflower cheese. You say it how you like it. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. And I have to tell you, I felt so comforted after eating this.